I'm Marcus and welcome back to another video of jPlay. And I believe this is now the 26th day or so. I really should not do these kind of videos when I come from work. Still, I want to give you a very brief overview about this brand new game, Nauticus from Kosmos. And the designers are Wolfgang Kramer and Michael Kiesling. I think some of you might already know these names as they are responsible for great games like El Grande or the Palaces of Carrara. Right now I think this game is only available in German, and also the rules are only available in German as well, as far as I can tell. At least this is from yesterday, or I'm pretty sure they have not uploaded an English version for the rules in the meantime. And that's why I want to give you a very brief overview about the game mechanics, some of the core rules, and I think we'll show you some of the components. The game itself is basically not really language dependent, so I think in respect to there are no event cards or any special printing, so I think as soon as there will be English rules you should be able to play this game basically without any problems. So I think I will have a look inside the box. The game comes with a lot of nice cardboard items. I like the artwork, and let's have a look inside, and then later on I will tell you what I think about this game. Nauticus really comes with a lot of cardboard material. So for once there is this game board, there are sails, there are masts, there are pass tokens, bonus action tiles, ship tiles, money, goods, all this kind of stuff. There are alone, I think, 72 mast tiles, 72 sail tiles, dozens of ship tiles, I think around 50 of these good tiles. Then there are 8 of these action tiles. And what would a Euro-style game be without any wooden cubes? Let's quickly set up the game board. The turning disc will be placed on the center of the game board, and it will be set up that way that the anchor shows in the direction of these 3 workers here. The turn tracker comes here to the field number 1, and note that in a 2-player game only 4 rounds will be played, whereas in a 3 or 4-player games all 5 rounds will be played. The players are setting their victory tracker tokens here, these wooden colored cubes here, on the field with the number 10, so each player starts already with 10 victory points. Each player gets a player board representing a storage area, a bonus action tile, a set of these -1 to -3 pass tokens, 3 workers, and 15 talers. And the player who is not going first gets an additional taler to balance out that he's not going fast. I think in a 3-player game the 3rd player would gain 2 taler and an additional worker, and the player, if you're playing with 4 players, then a player at position number 4 gains 2 talers and 2 workers. Let's start a new round. The starting player shuffles the action tiles and places them in a clockwise order around this turning wheel. And we will start at the position where the anchor actually is. So we will place 1 here. And the rest around the turning wheel. Note there are 2 positions for these action tiles. So this is the starting position, and this would be the later position when the starting player has taken his first action. Let's have a look at these action tiles. For once, there are action tiles with a blue background. And a blue background means that you have to pay costs. And these costs are printed here on the game board. And for example, if we take this action tile, for instance, where you would be allowed to buy yourself hulls for your ship, then for example, this part of the hull would cost you 0 coins, whereas this part of the hull would cost you 3 coins. And then there are these light brown or beige action tiles, and they don't cost you any money, so you can just ignore the numbers that are printed on the background here. Additionally, there are these bonus actions printed on the game board, and these bonus actions will be utilized by the appropriate starting player when he chooses an action tile. Okay, so how does a round of Nauticus look like? Let's just consider that this would be the player board of the blue player. The blue player is the starting player, as you can see here. so he would go first in this very first round. The next thing is he would select an action tile he would go to. And this mechanism now is relatively similar to what you may know from Puerto Rico. Let's say blue wants to start with a hull. So he would select this action tile over here. First of all, he would check what his bonus action would provide him. And the bonus for this area here would say you would be allowed to grab yourself 2 workers from the common reserve and place them beside your game board. So the blue player would now have 6 workers at his personal possession doesn't sound right. So he would have hired 6 workers that he could use in a later step of this game. So then he would move it down to make everyone aware this bonus area or this area has been used and that he's going for this action tile. Next, he could actually go for buying the hulls. And there is another information, this is here from this turning wheel that you can see, and this says when you go for this action in this round, you would have 2 workers available already. So this is definitely something that you don't have to spend from your private reserve in this case. And each action that you would take for this tile would cost you 1 worker. So let's just say he wanted to go for all four of these hull tiles, then he would have to spend 4 workers. 2 are already available virtually, but then he would still need to spend 2 additional workers from his private reserve in order to take all these 4 actions. Also, he would need to pay the costs associated with these tiles. So let's give this example another go. And he would say, yeah, I want to purchase all of these 4 hull tiles. Then he would have to pay the costs that are printed for that. So the first tile costs 0. The second tile costs 3, 1 and 2. So in total he would have to pay 6 thalers. So he pays his 6 thalers. And then he would get the appropriate tiles from the common reserve as depicted here. And whenever you are performing all 4 actions on a purchase tile like this, then you would be allowed to gain 1 additional tile for free, and this is basically of your choice. So for example, he could go for another of these single ships, but everything that's been given to you free of charge has to be put in your normal reserve. And of course the same goes for this tile, as this has cost you 0 thalers, so we have to place this tile also to the storage area. The rest of these tiles can then be played directly into the dock. So there's this single ship here, and then he might start to build this larger ship like this one. So he's preparing maybe a ship consisting of 3 parts, and this is the maximum, and you can use these ship parts in a later turn. There is an additional rule. Normally you have to pay different parts from these action tiles that show ship parts or goods, for example. So you cannot easily go today and I want to have 2 of these sterns here, for example. That's not possible without a penalty. You could go for that, but then you have to pay an additional price for it. So the first tile would still cost you 1 tile in this example, but each further tile of the same kind here, so further stern, would always cost you 4 thalers. So if you want to go for 2 of these sterns, then you would have to pay 5 thalers instead of only 2, for example. But still, you need to spend 2 workers to do that. Next would be the action turn of the red player. And as blue already chosen this tile for this action turn, and note there are always 7 action turns in a round, then all other players can only choose to go for this action as well. Of course, only the starting player gets this bonus printed on that, and this is really very similar to Puerto Rico. So let's say that the red player only wants to go for one of these hulls, and he says, I want to build a very small ship here. So in this case, he would need to pay 1 worker. Note there are already 2 available virtually, so he don't need to spend any workers. He only would need to pay 2 of these thalers, and then he would be allowed to claim himself this hull. And as it was not free of charge, he can place it directly into his dock. As I'm only simulating a two-player game, this first action round is now over, and next the starting player would move to the red player. We will turn around this action tile to make everyone aware that this has been used already, and then we will place the anchor tile on top of that. So during the next round, when we would reset this whole action wheel here, then we would reset this anchor position towards this anchor tile, and this would then also simulate the fluctuation in the working market and so on. But for now we will keep it as it was. And now the red player would choose his action tile, and I think he will go for this buy sale action. So this would allow him from his bonus action to grab himself a free mast. And as usual, everything that's free of charge, we have to send this to the storage first. And you can select either of these masts, but not the masts or sails with a crown on it, because these crown masts or sails are more or less wildcards. Then he could perform his actual action here, and this would be to procure a sail, and he needs to keep the sails and the mast in respect to these crests here basically consistent. So he will definitely go for one of this sail here. This costs him 0, and then he will go for another more cheap one, so this will be this one there. This will cost him 2 workers. There's only 1 virtual worker available, so he needs to spend 1 worker from his common reserve, and he has to pay 1 thaler, and this would bring him 2 sails now. The sail that was more or less free of charge has to go to the storage area, whereas the other sail could be placed theoretically on a mast, but there, as he currently doesn't have a mast, he can directly store it into his storage as well. Next, the blue player could also go for an action, and I think that's definitely something he's going to do, and I think he follows the same example. So he gets 1 sail for free here, so this costs 0, and then he goes for this whale crest over here. So again, he also has to pay 1 thaler. He has to spend 1 additional worker because there's only 1 virtually available, so he can place these 2 sails into his storage area. Again, we will flip this around, so we cannot use this action in this round anymore. And once more, the starting player will move back to the blue player. And I think the blue player wants definitely to go for a mast spy action. So we would go for this action tile here. So he could now claim himself 1 victory point and 1 worker. So that's 1 victory point for the blue player. And he can claim himself an additional worker. Then he moves this below to represent that he already has taken the bonus. And then he could actually buy these masts here, and I think he will go for these 2 masts as he has the appropriate sail in his storage already. So he would need to spend 2 workers. That's not a problem, there are 3 available at this location, but he has to pay 2 thalers here for this right one mast, so he pays 2. The mast that costs some money can be directly placed in his stock, and he will just more or less finish this ship in respect to mass. And the second mast that was free of charge has to go once more to the storage. I think the red player will only take this mast with this nice little whale. It doesn't cost him nothing. There are 3 workers, so he does not have to spend any workers. So he can claim this mast and has to put it into his stock because it was free of charge. Not his stock, his storage. Again, we will flip this around, so we cannot use this action tile anymore. And again, the starting player figure moves to the red player. Blue wants to finish his one and only ship, so he wants to send goods and ship parts to the dock, so he decides to go for this action tile. This would bring him 2 victory points, so 1 and 2. Then he wants to move maybe these two parts to his dock to complete his ship. For each tile that you are going to move to the dock, you have to pay, or you have to use one worker. Fortunately, there are 2 workers available, so he does not spend any workers from his reserve. Also keep in mind it's a beige tile, so you don't have to pay any tiles here. So let's move these 2 tiles to the dock. So we will put first the mast to his ship, and then we will complete this ship with putting the right sail to the mast. And this is now very important. The crests have to match on a complete ship. So you cannot just go with this mast, for example, and place this sail on top of it. That's not going to work. There's of course one exception to this rule, and this would be to use these crown, sail or masts, which are kind of jokers. I already told you that. But for now, let's do as we planned that. So we now completed our ship, and now you get a reward for completing a ship. And you get exactly 1 reward per mast on your ship. So in this case, he only would be allowed to claim 1 reward. What are these rewards? For once, he could go for a crown mast. He could go for a crown sail, 3 workers, 7 thalers, 2 different goods, or 3 victory points. Of course, he has to choose one of those. If he would have completed a ship with 2 masts, then he could go for 2 rewards. But each of these rewards can only be chosen twice when completing a ship. So you could not go for 3 times the 7 thaler bonus or 3 times the crown mast bonus and so on. Let's say he decided to go for these 2 different goods here. And as they are free of charge, we have to put them in the appropriate storage area. Note that these goods also consume 1 space in the storage area. Whenever this is full, you cannot put any additional items there. The red player could also send some goods to his stock, but he also could decide to pass. And I'm only doing this to explain you this rule. I think in this case it's not a very good decision, but I just want to show how passing actually works. Each player got these 3 pass tokens. They start from -3 to -1. And each time you're about to pass, you can take the topmost of these tile and flip it around to the crown side. So in this case, this would mean he would not lose these 3 victory points by the end of the round. So the game really encourages you to pass during the action round. This also means that in this case, if the round would end, then the blue player would lose 3 victory points, whereas the red player, who has not flipped any pass tiles yet, would even lose 6 victory points. Again, we would have to flip this around, and then the starting player moves again. So blue once more could use one of the remaining actions here. He could buy some goods here, he would go for some extra cash, or he would go for a scoring round, not very important at this point in time for him. Of course, he got 1 crown at this point in time, and he could also buy these goods. Sorry, this is not buying goods, this is sending goods, but you're only allowed to send goods when you have for once a completed ship, and second, this ship is loaded with a good. So this goes on now until only 1 action tile is left. As I already mentioned, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 action turns in a round. The first thing that happens, we would resolve the remaining pass tiles. As I already explained to you, blue has flipped 1 pass tile, so he would suffer a penalty of 3 victory points. 1, 2, and 3. Whereas red still got all his 3 pass tiles not flipped, so he would lose 6 victory points. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The pass tiles are resetted for the next round. The round token is advanced. The worker disc here will be set to the position where the anchor was. The action tiles are being shuffled and then put again on the game board, starting at the direction where the anchor currently is. So each round these tiles are at a different position, which really makes it very interesting. and then a new round starts, and this goes on until we complete our 4th round in a 2-player game, or the 5th round in a 3 or 4-player game, and then the final scoring occurs. So you get victory points for each completed ship. So for example, if you have a ship with 4 tiles, and I was wrong, it's not a 3-tile ship, it's a 4-tile ship, you get 35 victory points. For each set of delivered goods, you gain certain victory points. For example, if you have a set of 3 goods here, you would gain 9 victory points. For a set of only 1 good, you would gain 2 victory points. For each worker not delivered tile or ship part in your storage or your deck, you could gain 1 additional thaler. So this would be 5 in this example, so 3 workers and 2 tiles. And for every 3 thalers, you would also get 1 additional victory point. And this ends my little review, little rule explanation video about Nauticus. Personally, I think it's really an interesting game. I have to admit I have not played it very often yet, but still I do enjoy it. It's not too heavy. Still, you have to make some proper decisions when to buy the mast, when to go for the sails. You have to see and check, okay, maybe during the next action phase I could go for this sail, or I would first go for this mast. When should I buy for the goods? When should I send them? And the one. So this is definitely something, let's say a medium weight Euro style game. I really like the artwork, the theme in general. I really enjoyed a lot. Also the quality of the components are absolutely premium, and really there comes a lot, as I already showed you in the box of Nauticus. The player interaction is, let's say, not very intense in this game. Of course, you could, let's say, take a bonus action that someone else might go for example, whatever. You definitely know that the red player wants to have this extra sail, so you could take it instead of him. But apart from that, the player interaction is very limited. One thing that you have to keep in mind is that most of the resources are limited in this game, and this is also something where you can more or less torture your little fellow or the other players if you, for example, go and buy the last sail that he might need to complete his ship, and when these sails are gone, then they are gone. To be honest, I have not fully understood what these pass tokens really should bring you in respect to gaming experience. Of course, on the back side there are these ground tokens, and these ground tokens can be used to score later on some additional victory points. But apart from that, I don't think what really the actual use is. Maybe someone can clarify this to me, and I will rethink that. I hope you enjoyed my little review and rule explanation video. I'm absolutely sure I forgot some details about some of the rules. I know I have not explained you these bonus tiles here, for example, which you can use once per game to do, let's say, a second action. And I think some other details about these action tiles around them. But I think it should help you to get a good overview about how this game actually works, about the mechanics, and if it's something that you would enjoy or not. I hope to see you soon in one of my next video. I think my next video might be again a full playthrough. I will not tell you what I'm planning at this point in time, so be surprised and hope to see you soon. Until then, bye bye.